Everybody, welcome to How to Be Mesmerizing. It's Tim Shurr, and we have another spectacular, mesmerizing guest with us today. Sumit Gupta is with us. Sumit, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure. So let me give a quick introduction. So you have created two for-profit companies and then one nonprofit organization. You've spent the last 20 years designing software, which is amazing. And you also have a passion for photography, which you're doing for about 8 years, which I've seen the photos that you've taken and they are breathtaking. And you also coach profit and nonprofit founders, including a leader at the UN, which is very impressive, and many top business leaders. So we're excited to learn from you today. So Sumit, you've said that you spent a lifetime staying invisible and hiding behind your computer and camera while you were leading your teams. So share with us a little bit of why you approached it in that way and what you learned from it and how you used it to make you a better leader.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim, for going directly. And let me share a bit about my upbringing and my growing up in the 1990s in India, which was a very different India than it is today. And when I found computers, when I found programming in the late 90s, I fell in immediate love with that because I knew, I knew, and I'm saying double quotes because I knew that I was not good at people. As an introverted and a shy child, I was looking for a way to do something which does not involve people. So that's how my love for computers started. Not necessarily as a love for computer, but as something which can basically where I can hide behind or what I can do something very good without talking to people. So that's where the hiding behind came from. And that allowed me to get even more deeper into the introverted and the shy zone of myself. And I totally thrived in that career for a long time because of that. So that's how it started. The same for photography. When I picked up my camera, I used it as something to hide behind. Like when I have a camera in my hand, then people talk about the camera. Even if I am noticed on the streets, photography becomes an easy topic to talk about without really talking about myself. So that becomes like a shield, and I would actually move around the city like this, which in a way allows me to really not feel any insecurity or any discomfort. So that's how I started, and how it relates to my leadership is that because that I was becoming so good at hiding myself, I could start seeing where people are stopping themselves, because inside me was a huge desire to do something for the society or to do something for other people. But I never did it because for me, that was like a big, scary world of people. But at the same time, I was able to see how people are stopping themselves, how they undersell themselves, how they can do much more. And I would always cheer them from the sidelines. I would always whisper in their ears that you can do more, or you can do better, or this is not true. What you think is just that, a thought. It's not true. But I wouldn't dare to be open about it, either for myself or for them. So that's where I got very good at having one-on-one conversations, working with people very closely. And I think becoming coach-like was a natural step for me as a leader, rather than being the inspirational, being the jumping leader who infuses his team with energy. I was always the leader who stays in the background and allow people to really thrive. So that's the answer to your question. Yeah.
So now I have more questions. A lot of beliefs in the past, and it's changed now, but a lot of beliefs in the past, there was this idea that if you were introverted or you were quiet, that you would not be a good leader. Most leaders that were out there were very extroverted, loud talking, fast moving, and introverted people would shy away from that, or maybe wouldn't speak up, or would literally be talked over. Because a lot of times extroverted people have a hard time closing their mouth because they're always just going. And so I've done programs for companies on the power of introverted leadership, breaking those old beliefs. So I loved how you said that you were like the whisperer, the whispering in their ear from behind the camera, behind the scenes, that you can do this and believe in yourself and being a source of inspiration for people. So what makes someone who's introverted sometimes a better leader?
Yeah, I think leadership as a skill is not about introversion or extroversion. And I think there are certain skills which are required for you as a leader, but which can be learned or which can be practiced irrespective of your personality. And being an introvert actually comes with advantages because, as I said, it comes with good listening skills,
Mhm.
good observation skills. Like I was always observing everything which is happening around me.
Yes.
I was even observing like the emotions which people were experiencing.
Yes.
Though I would not have the courage to do anything about it, but I was always observing. So as an introvert, I think the ability to listen is a huge strength, and being comfortable with yourself. I think that's another strength which introversion brings. To be comfortable in silence, to be comfortable in solitude.
Mhm.
And I think especially in the 21st century, that's the kind of leadership that we all need, which draws energy from or draws strength from a deep, deep sense of values, a deep sense of purpose in what you're trying to do, where you're going, and then moving your teams, moving your company, taking your organization forward, coming from that deep sense of grounding, rather than seeking validation from ideas outside or people outside you.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that answer. It's very good. And where did you find the confidence then to move from behind the camera?
I think that's a good question because it's also a vulnerable place to me to say that the confidence is probably still not there.
Mm.
And I think that you don't need confidence. Except the last 2 years, if you would ask me what is my biggest weakness, I would have said a lack of confidence.
Mm.
And I let that stop me from doing many things. But what I am realizing now is that confidence is an outcome of doing something repeatedly,
Mhm.
not a prerequisite.
Mhm.
So if I am not good at public speaking, I will not be good at public speaking unless I start speaking in public.
Mhm.
It's an outcome. So you do need courage. But confidence is an outcome. It's not a prerequisite. But maybe to answer the intent of your question, I think what gave me the courage or what gave me that strength to move forward was a deep sense of this can't be it. There has to be more. So I have to do something. Otherwise, like, what's the point? Otherwise, it all became very gloomy or very depressing at one point. And that gave me the strength or that courage to say that even though there is fear, there is confidence missing, let's move ahead and see what happens.
Yes, which is very courageous. And I love that how you're making a distinction between courage and confidence. And I agree with you, what you said, that confidence isn't just saying nice things to yourself. Confidence is taking action and then discovering that you have competency, that you can actually do something. And then that builds your belief that you're able to accomplish something.
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling that comes with that belief is what we label as confidence. But you can be courageous, which is to have the fear and do it anyway. To have a lack of confidence and to take action in that direction anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah. And just to add to that element about fear, because I think I misunderstood fear for a long time.
Mm.
And I see a lot of people misunderstand fear.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm realizing is that fear never stops us from doing anything. What stops us is that we stop fear, or we stop ourselves from feeling fear, and we run away and we find comfort in doing something else, which could be doing action, which could be watching Netflix. But if we really allow the fear to be and listen to it, that's where like movement happens. That's where positive stuff starts to happen. But the moment I say, I have fear and that is wrong, I should not have that. What can I do to get over this? So courage is the ability to move forward despite of fear, but not like crushing fear. It's like moving with fear in dance, not like moving, like crushing the fear and then moving beyond that. So that's one of my biggest learnings. And it's still very practical for me. The moment I see that I am trying to jump over things, I try to control things in a way that is a way to avoid fear. And then I remind myself to just lean back, take a deep breath. Okay, there is fear. Wonderful. This is something which is very important to me. I deeply care about. Let the fear be there, but I will move forward. As simple as that.
That is wonderful. I love that. Yeah, fear is really the idea that we're going to experience some type of pain. And so, of course, our brain is hardwired to avoid pain. And so anytime we experience any level of fear, our brain is, oh, we need to move away from that. But you are reframing that by suggesting that, hey, I'm feeling fear, but there's an opportunity here. And so maybe I'm going to feel this feeling, but I'm going to breathe through it and take action to move in that direction anyway. And that is when people have breakthroughs, because I've been observed over the last 3 decades that your biggest breakthroughs are hidden in the places you don't want to go. So as soon as you experience resistance, overwhelm, frustration, the stress, high stress, the different ways that we label fear, then all of a sudden you recognize, hey, I need to go in this direction. I need to shift my approach, doing some power breathing, redirect your focus onto the outcome that you want instead of what you're afraid might happen. So there's different ways that you can use your mind to feel more secure. And you develop this, I call it the third level of emotional maturity, which is feeling comfortable in uncomfortable situations. The point is not to so I had so much anxiety growing up. The goal for me was to never have anxiety. And that would have been wrong, because anxiety and our fear and those tough emotions are opportunities for growth. And if you never have anxiety, then, you never really have joy either.
Yes. And also when we talk about emotions, I think one thing which I'm learning is that emotions are meant to be felt, not to be analytically judged or solved or labeled, even as positive or negative. I think we label fear and many other emotions as negative. And I think emotions are just that, just energy, just something neutral. And as you said, if we allow ourselves to feel what we are feeling and not block them, that basically makes it easier for us to move, which we all want to go, and which leadership is moving forward. Like in as simple as I can put it.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. All emotions can be useful. And it's like the weather. We have different types of weather, and one season isn't better than the other. I have one son that loves the cold and one son that loves the heat. Neither one of them are right or wrong. It's not good or bad. It's just different experiences. And some emotions, if you should visit instead of moving in, because they can become toxic, like anger, shame, guilt, rage. They can be self-destructive if you move in and stay with those. But if you visit them, they can lead to greater healing and self-awareness. And so it's very good. Very good.
Yes.
So I love this conversation. So you're gifted at helping people see their inner power because you spent so much life hiding your own. What you've learned is that you don't pay attention to the story or the reasons people have for doubting themselves anymore. And instead you pay attention to who they really are. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think you can learn a lot from what people are saying, but you can also learn from what people are not saying, but they're still communicating.
Yes.
So when people talk about something and their eyes lit up, or when people talk about something and you can sense a deep pain or deep frustration, do you focus your conversation on what they are saying or what are the words coming out? Or do you focus on your conversation on what they are not saying? And I think that's somehow I see that if somebody is speaking, but there is a frustration in their voice, then I would go to the frustration, not to and what is behind the frustration. And if they're speaking and suddenly they smile or suddenly their eyes lit up, then I would basically catch up on that. Okay, tell me more about that.
Yes. Yeah. What just happened there? And ask them, because a lot of times as a coach, a leader, a therapist, anybody that's trying to influence someone else in a positive way, you're helping someone to increase their self-awareness. And so when you are really good at paying attention to nonverbal body language, like not just what they're saying, but how they're saying it or what their facial expressions are, or all of a sudden they smile or they take a breath or they pause for a second or they look up, and then you ask them, what just happened there? That's a way of increasing their self-awareness. And that is a very powerful skill that you have, Sumit. And most people do not have that because they don't even notice it because they're so focused on what's going on inside of themselves.
Yes. Yeah. And as I said, that as a skill, just like any skill, can be practiced, can be developed. And that has nothing to do with who you are as a person. If you are an extroverted, introverted, That skill can be learned, can be developed. And for me also, like there might be benefits from being an introvert, but that's a skill which I have to continuously practice, which I have to continuously be aware of, learn and grow. Because if I don't practice, just like any muscle, if I don't put it into use, it will get weak.
Yes. I really love how you're making that clear distinction that what we're talking about are skills that we can develop, and nobody is limited just because of a personality trait, right? We all have skills and assets, and the best teams, would you agree, the best teams are made up of a variety of personalities so that we have balance? As opposed to a whole team of introverts or a whole team of extroverts, although that's just one characteristic of a personality. That's not who a person is, just one trait. But yeah, having that diversity is essential if you want to reach your organization's fullest potential.
Exactly. And I think that's where real productivity comes in. When you mix up people who have different opinions, not just different personality styles or different skin colors, but have different opinions, and then they have that safety to express.
Yes.
Right? And then people listen to each other. So there has to be that space for for those emotions, for those uncomfortable emotions or even stories to come out and be okay with that. So that's where real performance happen.
Yeah, that I've talked about that a lot in this series on mesmerizing CEO secrets, all right, where creating psychological safety, where people can be open and honest and feel supported and feel like they belong, their ideas and feedback matter. That is huge. That is so crucial to the success of an organization. You can make a lot of money doing it the old-fashioned way. I'm hoping that as a human species that we are evolving past the old my way or the highway, and I'm going to tell you what to do and you're going to do it, because I don't like that model anyway. But it's not as effective. It's just not as effective. And so I'm sure others would have different opinions on that, or that's how the military ran for a long time, and they have reasons for being that way. But what we're talking about isn't really life and death situations. What we're talking about is how do you get the most out of everybody on your team? And so you're right. Diversity is more than race and culture. It's really, diversity is anything that's different from me, anything that's different from you. That makes it diverse. And yeah, very good. So one of your specialties is helping leaders deal with the pressures of constant uncertainty, which there's always uncertainty in life, but it just seems like with the pandemic now, it's just an extra helping of what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen by the end of today, and what's happening with vaccines and masks. And before, you didn't talk about religion or politics at the family table, and now it's religion, politics, and pandemic. Right. So how do you help people deal with this type of uncertainty?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. I think pandemic has turbocharged the nature of reality. I think the world was always uncertain. The pandemic has just brought it in our faces. And if I go back just 100 years, right, the world was much more uncertain, a much more scary place to live than what we are living now.
Yes.
So it's important to remember that uncertainty is nothing new. It's just that in the last 50 years, we have gotten used to so much prosperity and growth that this is new. Right? But as human beings, this is not something which we are not capable of dealing with. We have always dealt with more uncertainty, more disasters, more crisis than what this pandemic is. And we are much more powerful and resilient than where we are. So that's a zoom out view, seeing the last 100 years, maybe taking a view of the last, I think as far along you can go into history, this is the most comfortable we have ever been, except the last couple of years. So first of all, realizing that we do have this potential. And then also realizing that where is this potential missing? And one thing which I have come to believe in very strongly is that we have achieved a lot of benefits from being rational, from using our scientific research and analytical mind and applying it to problems, applying it to businesses. But at the same time, there is a huge different part of us which we have cut off, especially when it comes to, but even in other areas, which is first of all, our emotional self, our feeling self, our laughter, our having fun. Right? These things are not rational, but they are valuable.
Yes.
Nobody can deny the value of laughter.
Oh, yes.
And the third one is our physical self, just being comfortable in our own skin. And not always try to fix something, solve something, hide something, like seeing the whole world as a set of problems which are popping up and then pushing them down one crisis after another, rather than just open up our arms and say that, okay, this is the world, this is uncertain, and I'm going to move through it.
Yes.
Right? And I'm going to move through it not alone, because I'm not alone. I'm working with people. I'm living with people. We are living in a interconnected society. This meeting is an example, and yet we feel alone. Right? So how big of a tragedy is that? We are so interconnected. We are so close in terms of trade, economics, technology, and yet we feel so much anxiety. Yet we feel so disconnected. So embracing what we have as human beings, which is we are not alone. Like as simple as that.
Yeah.
And that will give you strength, that will give you resilience to move forward.
Yes. I love that. We are not alone. I always appreciated the tagline that we're in this together. And that should always be, whether there's a pandemic or not, we're all in this together. And so supporting ourselves and dealing with that uncertainty is so important and so crucial, because really the uncertainty that we feel in our lives is really coming from the uncertainty that we feel about our own value, our own worth, and whether or not we would be competent enough to protect ourselves, to take care of ourselves, to be able to survive. So many of us are focusing on surviving instead of thriving, even though we have more blessings and more prosperity than we've ever had before, more outlets and more resources. And the way that societies are changing their viewpoint, instead of thousands of years of passing along these old beliefs that are holding people back and hurting people, we're challenging every idea now. We're challenging every idea, and people through the internet have a voice where they might not have had it before, and can do amazing, have movements and do all kinds of create causes and experiences that they might not have been able to do in the past.
Yeah. And I think Einstein said this, that our mind is a beautiful servant, but a bad master. And we should always be mindful of that.
Yeah.
And the mind always tries to control things. So that's where the uncertainty becomes a problem only for the mind.
Yeah.
And I have a 2-year-old son, and everything is uncertain for him.
Yep.
And every time I see him after he's back from his daycare, that he's teaching me a lesson in how to be okay with uncertainty. Even if he falls down, even if he hurts himself, he's looking at his hand and saying, "Oh, I hurt myself. Oh, this will hurt." And he's doing it with the attitude of curiosity and a smile on his face. And I think we can bring the same attitude. It's the same uncertainty. We can make it very scary. At the same time, we can make it very joyful, or the wonder of not knowing what will happen tomorrow.
Yes. Yes. So we both have kids, and we've watched them as they learn to walk. They stand up, they fall down, but then what do? They get back up, and then they fall down, and then what do? They get back. Yeah. They're not in their head saying, "I can't walk. I'm not worthy of walking. I don't have the confidence to walk. Walking is scary." They're just getting back up and they're doing it again. And so over the years, I kept noticing what changes inside of us that causes us to shift from that natural courage and confidence to suddenly not having it. And what I have found is that it's through the experiences, what I call the big T and little t traumas that we experience in life, that we develop these unconscious beliefs. And those unconscious beliefs are like software in your computer brain that are telling you that you can't do things, that you're not worthy of it, that you won't be good enough. And so even with all the wisdom that you've collected, that bit of, I still don't have the self-confidence. The only reason that's happening is because you have beliefs in there. It's a little bit of malware that still needs to be upgraded. And we all have it. And so when you upgrade it, it's amazing what people are able to accomplish. Because when you stop telling yourself a story of why you can't, and you start feeling like you can, then you take action and you get a whole new set of experiences that shift how you feel inside. And so I love everything that you're talking about, how we can use fear and courage and all these different emotions in a way that lifts us up and empowers us. And then also to make sure that people know that you don't have to go through your life not ever feeling confident, because it's just literally a software update in your brain.
Yes, exactly. And to take that computer metaphor a bit ahead, I think when we operate only from our mind, and which is how we grow up, everybody. We grow up learning, we grow up studying in and remembering things. So we grow up in a very narrow bandwidth. I think if I use that computer metaphor, but there is more to us than our minds. So just allowing that, and I think what we talked about emotions, allow us to expand our bandwidth.
Yeah.
And then that expands the performance as well. So all of this stuff is not in contrast or not in opposite to results and productivity. In fact, once you allow that, it creates a totally different level of productivity and performance.
Yes.
Which was not possible in that narrow band.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. When I talk about changing unconscious beliefs, the biggest fear or belief that we have is I'm not good enough, and that sense of not being worthy or of feeling valued. And when we shift those beliefs, what happens is people feel a sense of self-love and self-acceptance, a sense of care and worth. And that comes from the heart, not from and you feel it in your body. I can't tell you how many people I'm coaching that are over 50, and I'm the very first person in their life that ever gave them a compliment or validated them or appreciated them or told them that what they had accomplished was really wonderful. I've had grown men crying, and they're like, "You're the first person that's ever said anything like that to me." And it's such a shame.
Indeed, it is. Yeah. And what you mentioned is very critical, because I see a lot of conversations about feedback in organizations, how to give feedback, how to receive feedback. But I think one thing which people need more is acknowledgement, sincere, genuine acknowledgement. Just that. And it could be as simple as that you have a wonderful smile, or you're looking good today, or I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate what you just did. It's something as simple as that. Just doing that.
Yeah.
Feedback has its place, but this acknowledgement is much more important. Acknowledgement to yourself and also.
So that's beautiful. I love it. I love it. Tell me a little bit about your photography and how you're using those beautiful photographs that you've taken to enhance. I don't know, what are you taking those pictures for? Instead of me telling you why you're doing it, why don't you tell us why you decided to share those pictures and what you've learned from traveling to all these different places and being with all these different people, how that has inspired you.
Yeah, I think if my computer or if my programming helped me at a given point to hide myself, photography has also helped me to discover a totally different side of myself. Because when I go to make a photograph, I cannot go from a business-oriented mindset that I will come back with 5 photographs or 10 photographs, which is a very goal-oriented. So when I am going out with my camera, I have to be okay with uncertainty. And it happens many times that I come back with 1,000 pictures and I delete all of them because I don't like any one of them. So photography is, first of all, teaching me how to be uncertain. In fact, my photography will become better the moment I get comfortable with uncertainty and I let go of the need to make a good picture. My best photographs happen when I am lost, when I am not there. In a way, I am like floating through the city with my camera, hiding behind it, but being there rather than thinking about the picture, thinking about the camera settings or anything.
Being in the flow instead of trying to control it.
Yes, exactly. And that has shown me the value of taking the same approach to everywhere else in life, including business, including working with teams, including coaching people, and how that allows for a totally different level of creativity and innovation. Because we all say ideas, this idea came to me. We never say that I generated an idea. Ideas come to you. And if you talk to people, we'll say that the best ideas come to them in the shower, while they are running, while they're doing something else. And getting lost in doing something, in being in the flow, is that opportunity for you to allow that creativity to flourish. So that's a big learning for myself. And on the second hand, photography is also almost a meditative practice for me. Where I can get lost, I can turn off my mind and I can relax and I can come back from a totally different perspective. So it gets my body moving. It gets my mind to relax and to just not focus on everything else which is happening. It allows me to disconnect, and it's something which I enjoy. So it's not something which I hate. So it's
Yes, that is wonderful, because a lot of business leaders and entrepreneurs have been taught the mindset of hustling. And if you're stressed and it's not working for you, you just need to work harder. You need to just push it more, right? And just keep charging forward. And that approach is not very effective. I find the harder that I tried to push and control things, the worse it went. So when you step back and you allow your mind to distract and get into flow, then that's when all of a sudden the insights come through you. The old idea that when you're charging for, your mind is not listening, it's talking. And when you get quiet, then you can finally hear God talking to you. And yeah, tell me a little bit about, you had said that India's so much different now than it was just a couple decades ago, 20 years ago. How is it evolving? How's India evolving in your opinion?
I think a lot of economic growth, which the West saw after the Second World War, India is seeing, and even at a much rapid pace because of globalization, because of internet, because of computers. So I consider myself quite lucky to be born in that era of internet and computers, where I found something which I was good at, and that allowed me to prosper. The same is true for hundreds of millions of people in India who have come out of poverty in the last 2 decades. So I think India is in a very amazing place. It's still has a very young population, still has a lot of energy. There's a lot of wisdom in the ancient Indian traditions, which, like, my big folly was that I ignored it until I was brought to my knees when I started leading people.
Yes.
And so I grew up as I said, I grew up with a love for computers and engineering. So I grew up in a very analytical frame. And that basically means turning off everything which is happening around you, which is happening in India. Conditions are still tough in India compared to the West. But wherever you go, you will see people smiling. You will see people in abject poverty with limited resources, but they will be smiling. They will be laughing. And if you see, they will be happy in a certain way. And there's a lot of wisdom. And if you don't look there, especially as Indians, it's only my fault. I have nobody else to blame that I grew up there, but I was still not aware of that. I think India is like looking for a bright century ahead. So I'm quite excited about what the future of India will be in the future.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah, that's very exciting. And all of us, not all of us, but many of us have to have some years beneath us before we start to appreciate the wisdom and the understanding and all that. I certainly didn't know any of the stuff that I know now. I was a mess and had to try to figure it out. And I learned the hard way. And sometimes you just don't learn until you get knocked down to your knees, because that's when you start listening. Yeah, it's very good. Sumit, where can people learn more about you and all that you do?
So I'm quite active on LinkedIn, and I have a website and a newsletter, which is called Deploy Yourself. So the website is deployyourself.com, and you can find the newsletter on deployyourself.com/newsletter, where I allow myself to just be and to share what is coming. Sometimes I share from what I learned from my son. Sometimes I share what I learned from my photography. And I bring all of these elements together to my leadership. And one question which always drives me is that if I can't do that, then what else can I do? Because the kind of things I have done, I have never thought. Like in my teenage years, I would never have even dreamed about it. So let alone doing it, I would never have thought about doing it. So the question is, if I can do this, what else can I do? And the same question I put forward to people and leaders I coach with. So see what you have done in the past. And if you can do this, what else can you do?
That's beautiful. Sumit Gupta, thank you so much for being a mesmerizing guest on the show today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim, for the wonderful questions and for your presence.